the Long Island serial killer. Like and subscribe for more. On a cold December morning in 2010, a police officer and his cadaver dog were searching the brush along Ocean Parkway on Long Island's South Shore. They were looking for a missing woman named Shannan Gilbert, but what they found instead would expose one of the most disturbing unsolved serial killer cases in modern American history. The officer's dog alerted near Gilgo Beach. There, wrapped in burlap and hidden in the brambles, was a human skeleton. But it wasn't Shannan Gilbert. Within days, 3 more bodies were discovered along the same desolate stretch of highway. 4 women, 4 victims, all wrapped in burlap, all discarded along one of New York's most isolated beaches. And this was only the beginning. The investigation would eventually uncover the remains of at least 10 victims scattered along Ocean Parkway. The case became known as the Long Island Serial Killer, or simply LISK. For more than a decade, the killer remained a ghost. Then, in July 2023, authorities finally made an arrest that sent shockwaves through the true crime community worldwide. But to understand this case, we need to go back to May 1st, 2010, and the mysterious disappearance of Shannan Gilbert. Shannan Gilbert was a 24-year-old woman from New Jersey who worked as an escort. On that night, she traveled to Gilgo Beach, a small gated community on Long Island, to meet a client. What happened next remains disputed and mysterious. At approximately 4:51 a.m., Shannan ran out of the house in a state of extreme panic, banging on doors, screaming for help. She told residents that someone was trying to kill her. She called 911. The call lasted 23 minutes. But when police arrived more than an hour later, Shannan Gilbert had vanished into the night. Her family reported her missing immediately. Months passed with no sign of Shannan. Then, in December 2010, police decided to conduct a new search with cadaver dogs. They were still looking for Shannan Gilbert. But what they found changed everything. On December 11, 2010, the first set of remains were discovered near Gilgo Beach. Within 48 hours, 3 more bodies were found, all within a quarter mile. They became known as the Gilgo 4. These were skeletal remains that had been there for years, hidden just feet from a busy highway. All 4 victims were young women who had advertised escort services online. All 4 had been wrapped in burlap sacks. All 4 had been carefully placed in the same area, suggesting the work of a methodical, organized killer. The victims were identified as Melissa Barthelemy, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Megan Waterman, and Amber Lynn Costello, ranging in age from 22 to 27. Each had disappeared between 2007 and 2010 after traveling to Long Island to meet clients. Perhaps most chilling was what happened to Melissa Barthelemy's family. After she vanished in July 2009, her teenage sister received a series of taunting phone calls from a man using Melissa's cell phone. The caller mocked the family's loss. Police traced the calls to crowded areas of Manhattan, making identification nearly impossible. With 4 bodies discovered so close together, police knew they were dealing with a serial killer. In March and April of 2011, authorities expanded their search. What they found was horrifying. By April 2011, the body count had risen to 10. 6 more sets of remains were discovered along Ocean Parkway and nearby beaches. Some had been there for years, possibly decades. Among them were Jessica Taylor and Valerie Mack, whose partial remains had been found in Manorville years earlier. The discovery of their additional remains connected these older cases to Gilgo Beach, suggesting the killer had been active for at least a decade. Also found were remains of an Asian male, a female toddler, and an unidentified woman. These victims didn't fit the profile of the others, raising disturbing questions about whether there were multiple killers or a single predator with varying victim selection. And then, in December 2011, the remains of Shannan Gilbert were finally found in a marshy area near Gilgo Beach. She was not wrapped in burlap. She was not near the other victims. The medical examiner could not determine a definitive cause of death. Was Shannan Gilbert a victim of the Long Island serial killer, or was her death unrelated? Her family believed otherwise. To this day, Shannan Gilbert's death remains officially undetermined, but her case became inseparable from the investigation. Years of frustration. For years, the case went cold. Despite extensive media coverage and a task force of investigators, The killer remained unidentified. The investigation was plagued by controversy and accusations of mishandled evidence and ignored leads. Meanwhile, the families of the victims grew frustrated, organizing and demanding answers as years turned into a decade. Then in 2020, a new police administration took over Suffolk County and promised to make the case a priority. A task force began using new forensic techniques: genetic genealogy, cell phone tracking, digital forensics, the kind of tools that had cracked other cold cases across the country, and slowly they began to zero in on a suspect. On July 13, 2023, police arrested 59-year-old Rex Heuermann outside his Manhattan office. He was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the deaths of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Lynn Costello. Rex Heuermann was an architect who lived in Massapequa Park, Long Island, just miles from where the bodies were discovered. He had lived in the same house for decades with his wife and children. Neighbors described him as quiet and somewhat odd, but not particularly threatening. But according to prosecutors, Rex Heuermann was leading a double life. The evidence painted a picture of a meticulous predator who used burner phones, careful planning, and knowledge of forensics to avoid detection. How did police finally identify him? The breakthrough came through a combination of detective work and modern technology. Investigators analyzed cell phone records and identified phones that pinged near multiple crime scenes. They used genetic genealogy to compare DNA found on victims with public databases. DNA from a pizza crust. Heuermann discarded matched DNA found on at least one victim. His devices revealed disturbing searches related to the case and methods of torture. Perhaps most chillingly, Heuermann's wife and children were out of town during the times when several victims disappeared. He had carefully planned his activities around when he would be alone. Rex Heuermann has pleaded not guilty to all charges. In June 2024, prosecutors brought additional charges for the murders of Jessica Taylor and Sandra Costilla, bringing the total to 6 murder charges. His trial is ongoing, and he is presumed innocent until proven guilty. The questions that remain. Many questions remain unanswered. If Rex Heuermann is the Long Island serial killer, is he responsible for all 10 victims? What about those who don't fit the pattern? Was Shannon Gilbert's death truly an accident, or was she another victim? There are also disturbing questions about how the killer operated for so long without detection. The victims were vulnerable women, often overlooked by society. But they were not forgotten. They were loved. They were daughters, sisters, mothers, and their families fought tirelessly to demand justice. The Long Island serial killer case is a reminder of the darkness that can hide in plain sight. It's a story of vulnerable victims, of a killer who exploited the internet age, and of an investigation that took more than a decade to produce an arrest. It's also a story of families who refused to give up and investigators who kept working even when the case seemed hopeless. As the legal process unfolds, we may finally learn the full truth of what happened along Ocean Parkway. But even when verdicts are reached, the scars will remain. The families will still grieve. The victims will still be gone. In the end, perhaps the most important thing we can do is remember their names: Melissa Barthelemy, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Megan Waterman, Amber Lynn Costello, Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, Shannon Gilbert, and all the others whose identities we may never know. They deserved better in life. They deserve to be remembered in death. And they deserve justice, however long it takes to achieve it. Like and subscribe for more stories like this.